focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler, and on today's First Coast Connect, it's the biggest stories of the week. The state will stop requiring childhood vaccinations after Florida's Surgeon General compares them to slavery. Duval School officials move ahead with a planned sale of headquarters, but refuse to release information about competing bids. The council pushes ahead with budget-tightening tax cuts, but may need to dip into reserves to pay for them. Pub subs are coming to the urban core as Publix inks a deal to become a downtown grocer. And the governor's race gains steam as former Florida House Speaker and First Coast lawmaker Paul Renner throws his hat into the ring. We'll talk about all that and more with our panel of journalists on our Friday Week in Review. Later, from family-friendly field day events to pop-up fashion markets, Third Thursday Sip and Stroll gets rolling again. It's all ahead this hour after the day's news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. The Labor Department has released its latest monthly jobs reports. In August, only 22,000 new jobs were created. That's about 50,000 fewer jobs than analysts were expecting. Last month, President Trump abruptly fired the Labor Department official who oversees these reports after disappointing data were released. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker says he's not certain when federal agents and National Guard troops will be deployed to Chicago, but he is preparing a response. From member station WBEZ, Mahwa Iqbal has more.
Governor J.B. Pritzker is vowing to sue President Trump as soon as the National Guard or other military forces enter the city. Pritzker says he can't enact any state laws that would override Trump's plans, but he says the courts will be on his side.
That's going to be our first line of defense, is getting a court to issue a TRO or other injunction against that activity.
Pritzker says he believes Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, agents will likely hit the streets of Chicago by this weekend. For NPR News, I'm Mahwa Iqbal in Springfield, Illinois.
Massachusetts is the latest state to announce policies to protect vaccine access. As NPR's Ping Huang reports, it's in response to confusion and instability on the federal level.
Last week, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. fired the new head of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The Food and Drug Administration put limits on the fall COVID shot. In response, states like Massachusetts are sidestepping the federal government with their own vaccine policies. Here's Governor Maura Healey.
People have been calling pharmacies and not able to get appointments because of changes made by the Trump administration.
On the West Coast, Washington, Oregon, and California have formed a health alliance. New Mexico is changing regulations so people can get COVID shots at pharmacies this fall. Florida is going the other way. The Republican leadership there is working to end all vaccine requirements in the state. Ping Huang, NPR News.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is threatening to target any Western forces deployed to Ukraine. This comes as several European nations say they could potentially send peacekeepers to Ukraine. NPR's Charles Maines reports that's if and when a ceasefire is reached.
Speaking in Russia's Far East, Putin said any Western forces deployed as peacekeepers would be legitimate targets for the Russian military. Putin argued the West's growing military involvement in Ukraine had been the root cause of the war. Putin added Russia would abide by any eventual peace deal reached, making the presence of outside forces unnecessary. A coalition of more than 24 countries, led by France and Britain, say they're prepared to send a reinsurance force to Ukraine once active fighting stops. The Trump administration has signaled it may provide air support, but ruled out American boots on the ground. Ukraine insists foreign troops are essential to keep Russia from launching new attacks. Charles Maines, NPR News, Moscow.
You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Good morning. You're listening to WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. I'm Stephen Ponson. It's now 9:04. The St. Johns County Commission reduced its property tax rate even more this week. Commissioners agreed to slice over $3.5 million from next year's budget, money earmarked for projects like the county wants to build, but hasn't yet funded, like a new boat ramp and an expansion to the sheriff's office training facility. Even though St. John's is one of the richest counties in the state, Commission Chair Krista Joseph says taxing people any higher than the minimum the county needs to get by just isn't fair.
You may think because they have a big house, that's great, but guess what? They can't pay it when they're a widow that has had her house paid off and there's no more income. I mean, it's just sad.
Other commissioners argued that reducing taxes by too much would strain their ability to pay for much-needed infrastructure improvements. The county's second and final budget meeting, where the commission could reduce the budget even further, is set for Tuesday, September 16th. That meeting will be held in the county auditorium on San Sebastian View in St. Augustine and streamed online on the county's website. A warming trend starts today in Northeast Florida. Temperatures expected to reach the low 90s, and we're going to have mostly sunny skies. Just a chance for an isolated shower or two for southern counties in Northeast Florida. We'll see a few coastal showers tonight in St. Johns and Flagler counties. Otherwise, we'll have mainly dry conditions with lows dropping down into the low to mid 70s.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with its Name Your Price tool, a way to see coverage options based on a driver's budget. Learn more at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Opinions expressed on the First Coast Connect Week in Review are those of our panelists and do not reflect the views of WJCT News 89.9.
Good morning. I'm Ann Schindler, and it's Friday, which means it's time for our First Coast Week in Review. Among our topics, the Jacksonville City Council may turn to funding reserves to protect public safety in the face of tax cuts. Officials move forward with negotiations to sell school board headquarters, but decline to release information about other bidders for the property. The state ends compulsory childhood vaccinations, with the Surgeon General comparing mandates to slavery. Downtown will be getting a new Publix grocery store, and Ron DeSantis offers a less than lukewarm endorsement to the newest gubernatorial candidate. To talk about all that and more, I am joined by Obi Umana, attorney and political consultant. Obi, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Megan Mallicoat, education reporter at Jacksonville Today. Good morning, Megan.
Good morning, Ann.
Nikisha Williams, producer of the Black and Published podcast, and most recently author of The Seven Daughters of Dupree. Good morning, Nikisha.
Good morning, Jacksonville.
And David Bauerlein, Metro reporter at the Florida Times-Union. Hey, David.
Good morning, everybody.
So, David, I would like to start with a story that you covered this week. It's how the City Council is going to achieve a proposed rollback of the property tax rate. Catch us up a little bit on what happened at this week's Finance Committee meeting.
Yeah, it's almost like a waterbed. You push down on one side, it goes up on the other, and they got to figure out how to balance it out because they have a lot of competing interests here. But basically, Tuesday, the council will vote on whether to cut the property tax rate by about 1%. It saves about $13 million or reduces about $13 million in tax collections. Meanwhile, they are getting concern or hearing concern from police and firefighters that if you do this tax cut, it's going to make it harder down the road for the city to afford various things, including supporting public safety. And city council members kind of waving that off, but they have made this potential move where they're going to go into their reserves or rainy day funds, which they said, no way, no how, we're not going to touch that. That's off limits. Never, not on our watch. Well, they may end up using this $13 million from the city's reserves to kind of create this special account that would be there if in the future there's a need for it to support public safety. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic here as we come up to this crucial vote. It does look like there's 10 votes for doing the property tax rate cut. The mayor's out there sort of doing all these town halls, kind of barnstorming the county, trying to argue that this is a gimmick, that it's just a small, almost unnoticeable impact on people's tax bills. And so there's a lot of things in play here that are going to come to a head Tuesday when they vote on this tax rate, which in past years has not been all that interesting to cover, but this year will be for sure.
You're saying they probably have 10 votes for the tax cut, but they would need more than 10 votes to dip into reserves or to take the money out of the reserves and move them to some sort of, secure fund.
That's right. If you go into the reserves, it takes a supermajority, which is if all 19 council members are there, that's 13 of 19. So that's not a given, in terms of what that would be. And, there's other council members who might say, if we're going to take reserves out for this, then let's take reserves out for some of these other programs that are potentially on the chopping block because of the cut in the property tax rate. So, but yeah, it is a high standard.
Yeah. Obi, Randy White, who's the former city council president, but also a lifelong firefighter, this was a concern that he brought to the fore because he's hearing concerns about, will we be able to afford public safety, including a very significant, pay increase that has been approved, will continue to cost a lot of money. This is a $13 million reserve fund that they would create for public safety to offer some assurance. But this is a budget that gives public safety $100 million more just this year. And it's already taking up 51% of the overall city budget. Is $13 million enough to even offer that sort of security?
Yeah, it's definitely not. It's definitely a drop in the bucket of what public safety is going to need, not just this year. When you're cutting the property rate, you're cutting it for future years as well. And so that's money that will also not be coming into this bucket of money. And so, to me, normally, if you have to dip into your reserves, then you probably don't have the money to do it. And that's why this is more of a performative tax cut just to hurt. It seems like just to bother the mayor or affect her budget than actually doing something legitimate.
Yeah. Nikisha, one of the things that the mayor has pointed out was that the council had demanded a budget that didn't dip into the reserves. They were really unhappy last year when she had a budget that had dipped into the reserves, and they kind of cut and cut to try to diminish that. But this year she gave them a budget that didn't dip into the reserves, and now she's saying, well, here we are. Because of this tax cut, they may in fact have to do that themselves. She, as David said, is doing this kind of series of town hall meetings to rally troops against the proposed tax cut.
And I think what Obi just said is absolutely right. This is political performance, political theater. They are trying to do this performative tax rate that's going to give tax property owners, $18 a year. Like, I can't feed my family of 3 on $18 a year. So, what are we doing? But beyond that, trying to hurt the mayor's standing, they're also politicizing the communities who would use the programs that she was funding, and that they're trying to take that money from, and that they're looking to defund the health programs, some of the programs for the unhoused and the undocumented and those who are low income. And so not only are you doing this political theater to get at this Democratic mayor who you don't support, but you're also doing it to hurt the very people of the city that you're supposed to be helping and that you're supposed to be serving. So it's trash on all sides, and that the fact that the mayor has to go to the people of Jacksonville to rally support and generate public ire for what everybody sees is wrong is another performance tactic. But here we are. If it's not a theater performance, then people are not interested.
I thought it was interesting. David reported there was a little bit of magical thinking going on at this meeting because, the finance chair, Raul Arias, was saying, well, we can, dip in reserves. We can create this other reserve fund account. And Randy White was saying, therefore, we're not really dipping into the reserves because we would be putting it in an additional reserve fund. The deputy general counsel kind of wasn't taking that. She basically said, you can call it whatever you want, but this is taking money out of the reserves, And so is there a political reason that it's important to them to call it something other than dipping into the reserves?
I think you see that a lot these days, right, with the performative, the politics of budgets. And so if they call it something to market it differently, then perhaps they'll get the politics on their side.
It's a narrative tactic. To change policy, you first have to change the conversation around it. And so if people hear that you're dipping into the reserve fund, and you ask the mayor to deliver a budget that did not do that, and she did, and then you say, well, it's not a reserve fund, it's a savings account, you're now trying to change the narrative. And so using language to augment what it is that you're really doing. But the fact of the matter is, you can call it whatever you want. The policy and the actual action is dipping into the reserve fund, and people are not so they understand what that is.
Yeah. We have an email from Paul. He says the council wants to pass the smallest possible millage reduction only to be able to claim that they, quote, reduced taxes. They don't actually want to reduce taxes. They just want a headline. I mean, there has been questions, as you said, David, about the size of this measurably. I mean, but the people who are promoting this, including the city council president, Kevin Carrico, has said, look, people are struggling. We are hearing that from our constituents. Any little bit helps. And whether it's a marginal difference that doesn't make a huge amount, we want people to know that we're on their side. And so that's the argument that they're making, even if it's maybe $1 a month to an average homeowning household.
Right. I mean, if you own a home and you are paying for your mortgage and you're also paying for your insurance, which has been going up a lot, and that's a cost that you're having to deal with, and then you're also paying property taxes on it, there's some frustration that people have out there. And if you can tap into that frustration and say, we hear you, sort of, we feel your pain on this, we're going to do what we can to try and help out by cutting the tax rate, then that can be a popular political argument that you can make, which is why I think on the other side, Mayor Deegan has been really emphasizing that it's really not that big of a difference for you. $200,000 home with the homestead exemption, you're going to save $19 on your tax bill compared to keeping the millage rate where she wants to keep it.
Right. And that's for the roughly half of the people in the city, taxpayers, that actually own a home and would receive that tax break.
And the other half are renters. And, would their landlord pass that on to them? It seems unlikely that a landlord would pass on those savings by saying, okay, we're going to cut your rent next year
by $18.
Yeah, it just doesn't really work that way. They have a lot of different costs. And the other thing is basically people's property values are going up. So you may not even see a smaller tax bill this coming year than you did next year, because it just may be your taxes are not going to go up as much as they otherwise would. Well, that doesn't really hit home with people very much.
Yeah. If you're just joining us, I'm talking to Nikisha Williams, Obi Umina, Megan Mallicoat, and David Bauerlein about the week's headlines. And you can join our conversation by giving us a call at 904-549-2937. You can also watch our program live stream on Facebook or YouTube. You can email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org, or you can reach out on social media. We've got a call from Susan in Mandarin. Good morning, Susan. Go ahead. Are you there, Susan? We can't hear you.
Thank you very much. Yes. Sorry. I was trying to put. So I wanted to ask David Bauerlein a question, because he wrote an article about Elements Development, that's the adjacent land right to the Duval School Board headquarters, and it's been getting tax incentives, from what I can tell from his article, for years, maybe decades, and it doesn't seem like much development is happening. And also, the Jackson wrote an article that says, why not have the Duval headquarters just stay where they are and sell part of their land to help with the development, because there's so much vacant land there. Why would we want the Duval headquarters to move? I just don't get it. Like, why don't we give them some money to renovate their building? The Downtown Investment Authority is giving millions away to people. Why not to the Duval School Board to let them renovate their building to help make that area nicer? Thank you.
So Susan, I guess, is going to move us on to our next topic, which is relocating the Duval County School Board. So, I mean, we should say this is a story that, Megan, you've been covering. So, David, I'll come back to you on the Elements Development in just a second, but I'm going to have Megan kind of cue up what's happening. This is a story that you've been covering about the sale of the Duval County School Board headquarters. It's, something that's come up and bet down, I guess, over the last couple decades. But right now there is a sale that appears to be in motion, and at the same time some secrecy surrounding who else might be interested in the building. So tell us what you've been reporting on.
Right. Well, this week the board voted to move forward with continuing the negotiations, which was kind of a shift from the original plan, which was to go ahead and approve the sale of the current headquarters and purchase the new one. But the reason that there's been some community conversation over this topic is because in the process of wanting to sell the Prudential Drive building, the district says that they received 10 offers through a real estate consultant firm, and they have yet to release what those 10 offers were. And I think traditionally for a large purchase or a transaction like this, and also in the past attempts to sell this property, it's been a much more transparent process in that. And David, I think you covered the last time it was like an unsealed bid process where then all of the bids were discussed and kind of laid out on the table very publicly. And it's not been the case this time. So I actually requested all 10 offers and got it denied twice by the school board. And the reason that they cited was an exemption that I truly don't feel applies. It was an exemption.
An exemption to the public records
To the public
law.
records, that's right. That I truly don't believe applies here. It had more to do with the purchase of property than the sale of property. And also the timing within the exemption that they cited also did not apply in this situation.
And so they're saying it's exempt from what would traditionally the expectation would be that it would be a public record, because there is an assumption that records are open in Florida unless there's a specific statutory exemption.
That's exactly right. And government agencies like Duval Schools are obligated to share records upon request, and this is no different in my perspective.
And when you say that they're distinguishing that the statute applies to purchases, that you mean that if the school board was going to buy a property, that might be exempt from public disclosure, but if they're selling a property, it would not.
Yeah, this exemption didn't apply to sales. And so I think it's important also to note that they may be able to find some other exemption to offer as to why these bids would be not obligated to be released. But the citation that they gave for the exemption in this case was not applicable here. And I've asked the OGC, Michael Fackler's office, to follow up on it, and they have not yet come up with a final decision on their regard. But the lawyers that we've contacted in an attempt to get these agree that the specific exemption that so far that we've received isn't applicable here.
Doesn't apply. And who cited that exemption to you? Was it the spokesperson or was it the Office of General Counsel?
No, it comes through the public records system, and so you don't know exactly who the person was. And I've asked about that, but I haven't figured out exactly who came up with the idea to do this exemption yet. I honestly don't know.
In terms of the relocation, Obi, there are concerns about that straight up, aside from whether there's secrecy around the sale process. And that has to do with moving what is currently a central downtown location for what is an urban school district outside of that urban area and to the suburbs, essentially down Bay Meadows Road.
Exactly. I mean, I think it really moves it into an area that is going to be very convenient for some and then very inconvenient for other people in the district. I think being downtown has always been why that has been there, because it has about the same access to everyone. I do think the other part of this is, and going back to what you're saying, is it really does matter who is buying this property, because the current, I guess, person that is up for bid is a nonprofit. So
That's
it
right.
does affect how the taxes will be returned to the city. And so, as far as the benefit of kind of selling this is a couple reasons. One is that they want a new building and they want to be able to have the money to do that. But the other benefit was supposed to be that the city would get to put that riverfront property back on the market, and the city would be able to benefit from the taxes from it. And that's not going to be the case if this current bidder is the person that buys it. And so knowing who else is up for bid and what those bids are kind of gives you a whole picture of what is actually going to be the benefit of selling it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Nikisha, there was one speaker at this school board meeting who said that she took a bus from Arlington to this new location as sort of a test, and that it had taken 4 hours, something that would be particularly difficult for someone with children, and basically saying that the move is going to shut out people who don't have access. The NAACP has raised the same concern, saying that people who don't perhaps have a car or access to a bus that goes directly in that area would really be disenfranchised.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as Obi just said, the downtown location being where it is pretty much equidistant from like all sides of town that you can come from. As we know, Jacksonville is the largest city by land mass in the lower contiguous 48 states. That's a lot of land, right? Because the district is incorporated. the county is incorporated with the city. So if you're coming from White House Baldwin, or you're coming from all the way North Jackson, or you're coming from, the south side, near the St. Johns County line, like Bartram or whatever, if you're going downtown, everybody's traveling about the same 20 to 35 minutes. If you move the headquarters to another location that's closer to the south side in a more affluent area, then one, not only are you targeting that specific group of parents and students to have more of their input when you're having meetings and contentious decisions, but then you're also shutting out the people who need access to you to argue against those decisions. So then you're cloistering yourself into an area where you're going to have a more favorable opinion of the people who come out to speak at the meetings and try to influence the board or help to say what it is that the people want. When you are centrally located for everyone, then everyone has a chance to give voice to whatever their issues are education-wise for their family. And by moving away, you block access to certain families. And I think that might actually be intentional.
David Bauerlein, I do want to get to some of the questions that Susan raised, including, your previous reporting, questions about cost, whether there's alternatives to, perhaps maintaining this building, selling off some of the property that they do have. Can you address some of those things that she had and remind us a little bit about the Elements project?
Yeah, definitely. And my basic understanding, too, in terms of Florida Sunshine Law is an entity like the school district seeks proposals to sell property. They can keep those confidential for 30 days or until there's a decision. And certainly, I think both of those sort of have elapsed.
Mm-hmm.
And now they may argue they're going through this outside firm and it's handling it. And so therefore, it's not an actual formal request for proposal, which seems like a big loophole because really that's the whole point. The public should be able to know when they say this is the best deal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let people judge for themselves and see whether they also agree with that or not. And just let it all out. Let's see what all the proposals are. But basically, the question about the Elements, there's a big site next to the school board building that was at one time a JEA power plant that got demolished. The city put it up for sale. And there is a development that's taking place there. It's taken a lot longer, as things often do downtown, to
The
actually
name
happen.
has changed about four
It's
times.
changed about 4 times. Healthy Town, and now it's, I don't know what it is, River's Edge or something like that. But basically, there is a townhome community that's being built there. There's been a lot of work by the city to put in parks and extension of the Riverwalk. So that is happening. But basically, the school board headquarters building is surrounded on 3 sides by private development. It's a prime piece of real estate. It's on the riverfront. It's on the South Bank. That's why it's an attractive place for somebody to spend $20 million to buy it.
And in terms of the benefit, Obi was mentioning, whether or not this would actually be a tax benefit to the city if a nonprofit occupies it, freeing up that land to be a revenue generator has been the chief argument, has it not, for moving city off of the river?
Yeah, definitely. You get government off the river, put tax-paying private property on it. Obviously, a nonprofit does not pay taxes. So, maybe you have that element of 7 days a week, 24/7 activity in that site, which you wouldn't with the school board headquarters building, but it doesn't generate more property tax revenue.
Megan, they're currently looking at this sale, which would, and then the move. And so they're saying if they could sell it for 20 and the new building would cost them around 14 million, that they would be essentially making 6 million. You pointed out that there's some things that aren't necessarily included in that.
Right. And the superintendent has, especially at this most recent meeting, has pointed out that there are other fees that you have to take out of that. He calls it a $6 million delta, meaning the difference between the sale price and the purchase price of the 2 proposed properties. But yes, so you've got some interesting things that are going on here. So you have realtor commissions, which at a sale that's that large is quite a bit of money. And then you also have some money that's the district is going to have to spend because of the structure of the deal. And so it has to do with the timing of the closing dates for both transactions. And so the sale of the current building is actually supposed to come after the purchase of the new building. And because it leaves about a year's gap. And so if you're spending $14 million before you receive $20 million, you have to basically take out a loan is what it comes down to for a year. And the interest on that loan can be, $500,000 and maybe $1 million, depending on how, what the terms of the deal are and how long it ends up being. And then also Fleet Landing has, from our understanding, and again, we don't have the specific offer in front of us, but from what we've heard through the school board members and the superintendent, Fleet Landing has suggested that they would pay in 2 chunks. So they would pay $12.5 million up front, and then they would pay the remaining, I guess, 7.5, 3 years later. And then, so that also begs the question to me of, if you're receiving $12.5 million, but also you just had to pay $14 million, where does the rest of that money come from? And will you have to be getting a loan for that, in which case you incur more interest charges? So when you add the real estate commissions, the possible interest on loans to tide the time difference, and then just the actual physical cost of moving an entity that large 10 miles down 95, it's quite a bit of money. And so it genuinely makes me wonder, is the next offer potentially a better offer? We don't know, because we don't know what the details are. We don't know if they're going to pay the next offer was supposed to be $15 million in some, so we don't know if they had offered to pay all of that up front and sooner. We don't know. So this is the basic reason of why I really want to see the offers.
And it is worth noting that you are making these requests. Do you get any sense that the questions that you're raising are going to give the school board members themselves some additional questions to be asking during this process? I mean, if you're not able to see them, presumably the school board members can see them.
I mean, I would hope so, but also I don't know. So I had contacted a few different school board members prior to their first meeting on this topic a few weeks ago, and up until their agenda meeting, they also had not seen the details of what these proposed contracts were, or to my knowledge, they've not seen the bids at that point. Perhaps they've seen them now within the last few days, but
it would seem like they would demand that, Nikisha.
It's given that it doesn't make dollars for the city, which means it also doesn't make sense. And it also seems like intentional obfuscation, that the board is being intentionally closed-mouthed and trying to do underhanded table deals because it's what they want to do, what leadership wants to do, and not necessarily what the entire board wants to do or what is even best for the city.
Yeah, I don't. There's so many people that that want different things, and it's interesting, and they've said too that some of the move to this Bay Meadows property, the inconvenience will be offset because they'll use the Schultz Center and the existing Parent Resource Center in their Midtown property to do any.
The Schultz Center is on Beach Boulevard, and it's a couple miles east of downtown.
Something like that, yeah. And so they've said that they would move, for instance, the school board meetings there, but also it's not clear if it's just the once a month big board meetings, or if it's every public committee meeting and workshop and agenda meeting and everything down there.
We have a message from Tom on Facebook about that, saying the plan to split the school administration between 2 locations is not good and would hamper communication between the two. It would also be inconvenient for citizens to access school leadership. Just briefly, David, I wanted to ask you about something that Megan was reporting, but I've found true, and I'm curious what your feeling is. I mean, one of the experts that she talked to about public records access is a sense that that some public records agencies in the state are almost deliberately underfunding those staffing functions. I recall asking FDLE for some records a few years ago, and I was told it would take a year just because of their staffing situation. Have you seen a decline in sort of either the responsiveness, the ability of public records officials to keep up with the pace of requests?
At the state level, for sure, and who knows whether that's intentional or what the deal is there. It takes forever to get records from the state.
It's always intentional.
And then on the local level, the mayor's office is responsive. I mean, you have a former journalist as mayor.
Right.
She's good. The sheriff's office, I believe their budget includes more funding for handling these public records requests. But as your experience shows, it's not only just the time it takes, but also the huge amount of expense. And I have made requests like that and gotten from different levels of city government, and you go, really, it's going to cost us, thousands of dollars to get these records because you have to go through and redact all this information. But I do get a sense that it's more at the state level than the local level. And the main bar at the local level is just large costs for complying with the public records requests.
Well, I do want to move on to a topic that's been in the news, especially in the last 24 hours, that has to do with vaccines, childhood vaccine mandates going away in Florida. This is a decision that really has stunned people in public health. It's gotten international coverage. I want to start by playing some of the sound from the state Surgeon General, Joe Ladapo. Let's take a listen.
The Florida Department of Health, in partnership with the governor, is going to be working to end all vaccine mandates in Florida law. All of them. All of them. All of them. Every last one of them. Every last one of them is wrong and drips with disdain and slavery.
So is that final comment that got a lot of attention, I think, but also just the mere fact of doing away with childhood vaccinations. You know, there are doses that kids have to take, Obi, of all kinds of things, whether it's for tetanus or polio, mumps, measles, all of the things that kids typically have to get vaccinated for before they can go to daycare, before they can go to public school in Florida.
Yeah, I mean, this is this is a little bit ridiculous. I think whenever I feel like I need to agree with Rick Scott where he says this is unneeded, I think this is goes across like, bipartisan support that this is not something that is really needed at this point.
Because Rick Scott is saying that himself.
Well, yeah, Rick Scott also said that we already have the ability for people to opt out, and actually in Florida is one of the lowest percentage of vaccinated people. I think the national average is like 93%. Florida's at 88%. So it's already at one of the lowest states. This isn't needed. This is more performative to get in front of some of the extreme parts of the party. And when Rick Scott comes out against it, it really makes you understand that what are we trying to do here? I think, people send their kids and they're worried about their toddlers coming home with a cold, and now they're going to be worried about them coming home with measles and polio. So I just don't see the point of doing this.
Megan, I'm guessing this is something that our own school district is going to be dealing with on some level. But this was, when the pandemic was happening, our school district had incredibly fiery meetings about masking and mandatory vaccines. And so we know that there is a lot of emotion surrounding that issue already. Do you think the school board's going to weigh in?
I mean, I imagine that they'll have to, right? Because it will affect school districts in Florida perhaps more than any other agency, since the school children is where we kind of make sure that all of our citizens are vaccinated so far. So yes, I would be sure that the school board will have to discuss it. It's worth noting that it's a different board now than it was during the mask debate, that the political affiliations and just kind of the general demeanor of the board has changed a lot in the last 5 years. So
and many of the board are members that were supported by the governor, Ron DeSantis. I mean, these were people that kind of aligned with him politically,
right?
And I guess could be expected to align with this decision by his administration.
5 of the 7 board members are typically thought to be kind of hard party line Republican members, even though school boards are officially nonpartisan. Our school board here in Duval, it has a lot of connection to the governor.
Yeah, and Akeisha, I would think it's safe to say that the epidemiologists of the world, most of them are just kind of flipping out about this. I mean, there has been a lot of research done. The CDC itself says that vaccines, childhood mandatory vaccines, have prevented 1 million deaths, millions of hospitalizations, more than 30 million hospitalizations, more than 500 million sick kids between 1994 and 2023. So there is a lot of evidence that they work in terms of preventing illness and death. But there is also a huge movement, and this aligns with what's happening in the Department of Health and Human Services, a lot of pushback, including by RFK Jr. on vaccine safety.
This is dumb. Like, we've been talking around it, but this is dumb. You're going to end vaccine mandates for school children. I have school-age children. My daughter is 4. My son is 10. My daughter just got 4 shots. She's going to keep getting her shots because that is my choice. It's not slavery. It's not. You already have the exemption to opt out. And if you do not want your children to get vaccinated, they don't have to go to public schools. There are also other avenues for that. It's not slavery, but it is a death sentence. If we've learned nothing from COVID, one thing we should have learned is that infectious diseases travel. in people, on planes, in the air. If you've ever had young children that go to daycare for the first time, they come home within the first week with a runny nose, hand, foot, and mouth, RSV, whatever is going on out there, and then they give it to you. And so now we're going to have scores, hundreds, thousands potentially children, school-age children in public schools in the state of Florida coming home with diseases that were almost eradicated, like measles. We want to be Texas, right? I mean, I hate to see the pandering to the most extreme fringes of the Republican Party in the name of parental rights. I didn't ask you for this, and I'm a parent. No one asked you for this. This is dumb. And to liken it to the heinous actions of slavery that kidnapped 12.5 million people from the continent of Africa and enslaved them across the New World, this is not that. How dare you make the connection or the correlation in the name of pandering to members of your party because you want to curry favor with an authoritarian president? How dare you?
David Bauerlein, it is not the first time that this Surgeon General has been criticized for having, sort of fringe views when it comes to health issues. He's also been criticized for altering scientific records when it came to, whether the COVID vaccine was safe. There was, reporting earlier this year about, a document that showed Dr. L's edits, where he actually changed the results of a study about the safety of COVID vaccinations for young men between 18 and 39. And he basically added unproven information that men in that group were at high risk of heart disease or heart illness because of COVID. And so there's a lot of question about whether about whether his opinions or his statements can be trusted. Do you think that this position of his and of the administration on this is going to be popular in the broader world, kind of outside of the world of just the political folks?
No, I don't think so. I think most people support giving vaccines. They do it already, and partly to protect their own children, but also because the more unvaccinated people you have, the bigger the playing ground is, so to speak, for these diseases to spread. I mean, these viruses want to spread. That's how they survive. They want to go to another person. And if you have a large number of unvaccinated people, it spreads. I think it's going to, it could be that the state legislature will go along with this, but, this is a tourism state. Do people want to go spend a week at Disney World if they know this is a state where there's a large number of unvaccinated people out there? I just think there's a lot of consequences here that have not really been thought through. And I don't know that it's such a big cutting edge issue, even among Republicans, that this is going to cause people to upend decades of programs, public health programs that have been effective. The big concern is that it causes stuff like autism, which there's been a lot of studies that it doesn't. And, letting people, I just don't really see this as being something that's going to be an easy victory for DeSantis, even in a Republican-controlled state legislature.
And he doesn't. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
He doesn't really have the same influence with the legislator that he had in prior years, right? And I do think this is going to be an interesting test. I will say, though, already Dean Black, who is the Duval County Republican chair, also a state rep, has already come out in favor of it. So it's going to be an interesting test. I do think there are Republicans like Rick Scott that are not for it, and we'll see kind of where it lands. It's not.
But I bet you their children are vaccinated.
Of course.
I bet you their children are vaccinated, just
Right.
like RFK's children are vaccinated. And to
Yeah.
your question, what Dr. Ladapo was doing, and I hate to call him doctor, is unethical. It's unethical.
I want to hit some phone calls here. We've got a few people waiting. Sally in Springfield, go ahead, please.
Hey, good morning. Yes, I'm just calling to voice my objection to this and to represent all the people who were not at the meeting cheering wildly at Ladapo's proposal. It just makes no sense. There's seniors that live in Florida. There's snowbirds that come here. There's vacationers. All of these people add to the economy and to the well-being of our state. And having vaccines be not mandated for school children It's just a return to the dark ages. Thank you.
Thanks, Sally. We've got a call from Linda in Mandarin. Go ahead, Linda.
I just wanted to add that on top of the same week where we've seen the mandate or lack of thereof in Florida, with RFK's testimony yesterday, he's also another layer of lying because I want a COVID vaccine booster and I can't get it. I've gone to the pharmacies and they say they're waiting on guidance from HHS. And he lied in his testimony yesterday and said anybody can walk up and get one. So in Florida, we are in Neverland where parents aren't mandated. So you're rolling the dice with not only the children, but in those mixed households in communities that they count on herd immunity. So we're just pushing all that to the wind. And so much for Disney World. Go to Disneyland in California. At least you'll be safe there. Bye.
All right, thanks. Quick call from Tom on the west side. Good morning, Tom. Go ahead.
Good morning. Yes, this announcement by Latipo is absolutely terrifying. My granddaughter is in school. Her parents are separated, so homeschooling is not an option. I really fear for her safety.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate the call. I want to move on now to another topic that has been in the headlines and one that I know that we're all following closely, which has to do with the Publix coming to downtown Jacksonville. I do want to briefly talk about it because I want to get to some political stuff with Paul Renner, but a lot of excitement. Social media is sort of just a one voice, I think, on this, that they're very excited to have it. David, is this a turning point, a tipping point of some kind for downtown?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's something they've wanted for a long time, is a full-service grocery store in downtown. There is a fresh market in the Brooklyn neighborhood. There's a Whole Foods going in. But when you talk about the core downtown, where you think of the grid streets, the sidewalks, everything's close together, there's no grocery store. And the Gateway Jacks people, they seem to be the real thing. You know, I'm a see it, believe it when I see it type in terms of downtown. But they followed through so far. Publix doesn't make these announcements lightly. There's going to be a Publix in downtown, which has been something that people in downtown boosters have been after for years and years.
I mean, listen, people that have been following downtown, it's always been this kind of chicken and egg thing, whether or not to get people down there, you needed a grocery store or the grocery store needed the people there. And I think this is a big kind of move in one direction to really say, all right, now you have the stuff that you need to move down and feel comfortable in being downtown.
Yeah.
And the people are also here, as we've seen with the development and the expansion of La Villa. And so all those new townhouses, all those new apartments that are going up, that's downtown adjacent. You don't have to go across the bridge to the Fresh Market in Brooklyn. The nearest Publix was in Riverside. Mm-hmm. And there's one in San Marcos. So one coming to downtown. I think the population growth of downtown, as well as putting in the Publix, will allow for it to flourish even more.
I'm going to take a call from Bren. I think I just hung up on Brennan in Middleburg. Maybe he can give us a call back. I do want to just acknowledge that there's a new person in the race for governor right now. Not getting a DeSantis endorsement, Paul Renner, and throwing his hat in the ring. Let's take a listen to the governor's reaction.
I'm not supporting Paul Renner. You know, I think it was an ill-advised decision to enter the race.
And so that bite did not include him saying when he was initially asked, governor of what? Obi, what's your thought about Renner's chances here?
Yeah, I mean, I think, listen, Byron Donalds is the forerunner at this point because of, you know, Trump's endorsement. I do think it's surprising because when Renner was in office, he was one of the people that was carrying DeSantis's torch the loudest and really did everything DeSantis wanted him to do. And for him to not really just not endorse him, but to really kind of chide him a little bit and like kind of make fun of him a little bit seems a little bit rude. But, you know, this is what DeSantis is and has been for a long time. I don't see him really getting any of this enough support, especially because we think a DeSantis supported person will also be in the race. And so it really leaves him kind of third at this point.
We did get Bren back on the line. Bren, we've just got about a minute. Go ahead, please.
Hi, yes. I wanted to say my brother-in-law was born blind. Actually, he was born missing an eye because their next-door neighbors, the children had measles, and so his mother came in contact with the measles while pregnant with him. So this is crazy to not be vaccinating our children. Thank you so much for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Bren, thank you for calling back after I hung up. I appreciate it. Well, we're going to leave it there. Nikisha Williams, Megan Mallicoat, Obi Umina, David Bauerlein, appreciate it. Great conversation. Thanks for all the work you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be back in just a minute with a event that's coming back to the St. Johns River.
Terrell Hogan Law.
I'm Wayne Hogan. One texter call can wreck it all. Learn more through distracted driving presentations for teens and the workforce. Arrive alive. Let's end distracted driving.
More at TerrellHoganLaw.com.
What the medical establishment learned from the Battle of Gettysburg. I'm Dr. Joe Servin. Join me tomorrow at 4 for What's Health Got to Do with It, only on WJCT News, 89.9 Jacksonville.
The Cold War heats up in an explosive new stage adaptation of Stanley Kubrick's iconic film Dr. Strangelove, the dark comedy about nuclear paranoia, political absurdity, and one man's very peculiar plan to end the world. Steve Coogan, in multiple roles, leads a powerhouse cast in this razor-sharp satire, captured by National Theatre Live. Join us September 10th for film at WJCT Studios. Doors open at 6:30, film starts at 7. Get tickets at wjct.org/film.
On the next Florida Roundup, street art or traffic problem. The state has been removing all kinds of pavement paintings, from student art to LGBTQ rainbow memorials, from crosswalks and intersections. The governor says his state law requires it. Opponents say it's the latest confrontation of the culture wars. Do you find art in crosswalks a safety hazard or a cause for celebration? Email us radio@thefloridaroundup.org. I'm Tom Hudson. Then join us Friday noon until 1.
Victims of Jeffrey Epstein take the mic as the fight over the files reaches a boiling point. This week on the Friday News Roundup, the latest from Washington as Congress returns from recess, plus bad news for job seekers, and President Trump loses key court cases on National Guard deployment and Harvard funding. We round up the week's news next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Monthly Happy Hour is returning to the St. Johns River, gearing up for a new season. Here to tell us about what program is coming to the third Thursday Sip and Stroll is Haley Tinkle, Director of Events for Downtown Vision Incorporated. Hey, Haley.
Hey, how are you?
Good. I'm excited that this is coming back to the riverfront. So we were just having a conversation about what year of this event it actually is. And so it's something that DVI started as kind of an event on its own, a gala event 4 years ago, but it has since become a community event. And it has this element, but it's not just like open container on the riverfront. It's got a lot of other stuff. So tell us what's on deck right now and how it developed.
Yeah, so it started 4 years ago, like you mentioned, as a gala. And we had some really incredible community partners like the DIA and PNC Bank really fall in love with the concept of the event. And so we went through the process of pulling permits and working with the city and working with parks and doing what we had to do to make it happen. And so we launched it in November of 2021. So we're going into our fourth season of creating not only, like you said, a happy hour environment, but bringing live music, artistry, community, amazing, incredible local food together as well. And we also partner with the businesses that are along the river walk as well. We do a fun after party every month at the Doubletree with Hush Hush Silent Disco. So it's a really great time to enjoy one of the most beautiful amenities in town, which is the South Bank Riverwalk. I mean, there's nothing like watching a sunset on the Riverwalk.
Yeah. And so this runs basically from Friendship Fountain
all the way down to the Chart House.
Okay. And this is your baby. So I'm curious, like, what is your metric for choosing the partners, the entertainment, what you're going for?
Yeah. Last year, we started this program where we started doing cultural collaborations. At Downtown Vision, we have a really incredible program called Placemaking Jacks, where we have different community members apply to bring projects to life within downtown. And we had a couple of community members apply through Placemaking Jacks to do a project in that part of our organization. But they were like, we really love your event, Sip and Stroll, but we'd love to see more of our cultural connection in it. And I was like, let's make that happen. We don't have to do anything fancy. Let's sit down and have a conversation. And so that's really how that was birthed. And this year is our second year bringing back one of our partners, Rio Latino. That's how we're kicking off the season on September 18th. So we're partnering with a local partner named Pablo Medina. He's DJ XL. And so he is really leading the charge on helping us coordinate with different local Latin performers and dancers and musicians and food. So it's really great to get to work alongside him and have that authentic feel and get to use our platform to bring it to life.
So in addition to that, I mean, this is, as we said, it's a third Thursday event. And so it is every month. But you also have like sort of some field day events. You've got some fashion events. I mean, there really is a broad palette of stuff on offer.
Yeah, we're trying to really expand our horizons and find a different connection for everyone in our community. As you know, Jacksonville is such a beautiful mosaic of so many amazing cultures. And we have so many wonderful producers that are doing events all over the city. And so we're excited to partner. Like you said, we're partnering in October with a group called the Playdate Jacksonville. And in November, we're working with another local collaborator, DJ Larry Love, and we've got another group in February that we're doing a fashion show with, like you mentioned, Collect. We've also got a really great lineup in May for Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month with Grace Bio and Under Siege. So it's an honor and a privilege, truly, to get to come alongside these community members and get to see their cultures and ideas and everything come to life.
And ultimately, the goal here, I mean, this is a DVI project. It's to, activate downtown, make sure people are going downtown with some regularity, are comfortable when they're downtown, feel like it's part of their, their shared language. Exactly. In the last segment, we were talking a little bit about development that kind of continues further down the South Bank Riverwalk, including there has been a lot of city work on parks down there. Is any thought being given to extending the Sip and Stroll?
Yeah, that is our lifelong dream. We would love to see the entire Riverwalk activated, not only because I activate it every month. I personally believe that the South Bank Riverwalk is one of the most beautiful places in our city. And if you want to fall in love with Jacksonville, walk on it.
Yeah.
And so getting to get people on the Riverwalk and getting to see what all we have to offer, I think that is my favorite part of my job. And that is the dream, is to eventually activate, like you said, all of the new development that's coming with River's Edge and all the work they're doing. It would be incredible to see it continue to grow.
Yeah, and it is it's Sip and Stroll, but there's other stuff to sip. It's not just booze. There's coffee, drinks. There's all kinds of things, and it is family friendly.
Absolutely.
And pet friendly.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there are more dogs than people sometimes. It's great.
Well, the first iteration of the new season of Sip and Stroll gets rolling on September 18th. It runs from 5 to 8 p.m., and then there's an after party. Where can people get more info?
On our website at dtjacks.com/sip-and-stroll.
All right. Excellent. Well, Haley, congratulations on a
Thank
new
you.
season of it, and thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And that's our program. Thank you for listening. If you have comments or questions or suggestions, you can send any of it to First Coast Connect at WJCT.org. And if you missed anything, you can catch our rebroadcast tonight at 8 o'clock, or you can find our entire archive on your favorite podcast platform or wherever you get your podcasts. We can also watch our broadcast on the FCC YouTube channel. Don't forget to listen on Saturday when neurologist Dr. Joe Servin and a medical historian discuss how the Battle of Gettysburg impacted modern-day trauma care. The executive producer of First Coast Connect is David Luckin. Our show is produced by Stacey Bennett and directed by Brady Corum. New Papa, Brady Corum, congratulations. Our theme music is performed by Club de Belugas and Isabella Casapow. Gosh, sorry, Isabella, is our associate producer. Join us Monday. We're going to be talking about the decline of Florida's oyster habitat and how that's serving as inspiration for jazz compositions. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com. Congaree & Penn, dedicated to agriculture and culinary endeavors, offering field